Hey everybody, my name is Alex and welcome to a Crash 4 It's About Time video. Now if you're like me, Crash 4 It's About Time, you will be super excited for it because firstly, it's the first Crash game we've got in a very long time, or first new Crash game, and secondly, because so far, I think it looks amazing. I think it looks so fun, the levels look so immersive, the gameplay looks so engaging, so I'm very excited. But what I want to do in this video in particular is focus on the movesets of the characters we know thus far. So we know in Crash 4 It's About Time, Crash Bandicoot's going to be playable, Coco Bandicoot's going to be playable, Cortex is going to be playable, and recently we found out that Dingodile is going to be playable. Now, most of these characters have individual movesets and therefore will offer a completely different experience in gameplay, and I kind of just want to start a discussion on each of these characters, say what their movesets are from what I've seen, and say what I think of them, so let's dive into it. By the way, this video is very much an open invitation to you watching to let me know what you think of this topic in the comment section below. What do you think to the characters we've seen as playable so far? What do you think to their character movesets? And do you think they will be fun to play as? Let me know in the comments. So I think with this it makes sense to start with Crash Bandicoot because obviously he is the main character. So from what we've seen so far, Crash is going to have the exact same moveset almost as he did in the final game in the Insane Trilogy, Crash Warp. So the kind of things we're going to be doing, I'm sure if you've played those games you'll already know, but we're going to be doing a few types of jumps, like double jumps, we're going to be spinning and sliding at enemies, we're going to be ducking out of the way of obstacles, we're going to be belly flopping on crates, and yeah, I mean, it's all that stuff which made Crash 3 and Crash's moveset in Crash 3 such an enjoyable experience. Now, I'm absolutely delighted about this. I've said for a while in my Crash videos that what I really wanted Crash 4 to be, or the new Crash game to be, was a successor to Crash 3. A game which could please old fans of the series, fans that have been there since like the 90s or whatever, and stuck with it, but also a game that could keep people who had played the Insane Trilogy as their entry point engaged, and just bring everybody together and give Crash the best possible shot of a long-term future. And carrying over Crash's moveset from Crash 3, a fantastic moveset, what a brilliant idea. But what Toys for Bob, the developers of this game, have also done is they've spiced it up a bit. So on top of, well, the gameplay, if you watch the gameplay, you can tell Crash moves a bit more differently. He moves more like a modern gaming character. He's got more to his movement. I think he's a bit faster, a bit more nimbler, and it definitely feels like the experience of controlling Crash, though he has the same moveset, is going to be slightly more advanced and slightly more fun. So there's that. But what they've also done is they've added nice little different mechanics. So they've added rail grinding, they've added rope swinging, and obviously there's new quantum mass which give different powers themselves. So what Toys for Bob have done basically is they've took Crash from Crash 3, a very successful Crash game, and they've just developed it a bit. They've kept what's good, they've not tried to fix anything because nothing needed fixing, but they've just added nice little additions, and I think it was the perfect decision to go that way, and I really do think Crash is going to be a ton of fun to control in this new game. Now for Coco, this is very much the same because Coco's essentially going to be a reskin of Crash, but just being able to choose which one you play as is pretty fun. So Crash and Coco, I think, are going to be incredibly fun to play as in Crash 4 It's About Time. So moving on, another way Toys for Bob have really mixed up the gameplay in Crash 4 It's About Time is adding little bits of completely new characters with completely new movesets. Now just to touch on that, that is a fantastic way of mixing up the gameplay a little bit because you still get your platforming with Crash, but then you can do slightly different things with slightly different characters, keeping the experience pretty fresh. So, Cortex. Why is his gameplay so different and what is it? Well, firstly, as I just said, Crash Bandicoot's gameplay is just designed to give the best possible platforming experience. It's all about making cool jumps, it's all about sliding, spinning into enemies. But Cortex has a sort of more measured approach to him, a more puzzle-solving focus to his gameplay. So what Cortex can do is he can use his ray gun, which apparently isn't called his ray gun, but that's what I've always called it, so I think I'm going to stick with it. But he can use this ray gun to cycle enemy into three forms. These three forms are either, well, one, the enemy itself, or if he hits it with a ray gun once, it can turn it into a solid platform, or if he hits it again, he can turn it into a bounce platform, which is going to obviously allow him to make big jumps, or maybe make long jumps, whatever that may be. Now this is a very, very good idea because it just makes players deploy more skills. Instead of with Crash, I always think when you're controlling Crash, you're working on instinct. You're just working on muscle memory, you're making the right jumps, and it's so fun and fast paced, brilliant. But with Cortex, I think you're going to have to be a bit more measured. You're going to have to think, well, what do I need this enemy to be? Do I need it to be a solid platform just to make a small jump? Or do I need to think of it being a bounce platform so I can make a bigger jump somewhere? And it's a more measured approach to gameplay, and I think it's going to spice it up a little bit. Obviously, I'm still going to prefer the platforming of Crash, because I just love that intensity, although sometimes it makes me furious, but I love that they're adding a different challenge. And by the way, although I'm saying the Cortex levels are more measured and may take a bit more thought, they look super, super difficult, so it's going to be fun, it really is. One final thing I want to mention for Cortex is his forward dash. Now this is going to allow him to bridge big gaps, but it looks quite difficult to control, so as I was just saying, Cortex's gameplay is going to be pretty tough at times, and also, although Crash's is going to be more intense, Cortex's gameplay will also be quite a bit intense at times, so the forward dash is going to make this difficult, but also very, very enjoyable. So the final character I want to talk about in this video is Dingodile. Now Dingodile, his gameplay just looks epic, doesn't it? And right now, Dingodile being in the game and the gameplay we have seen from Dingodile is one of the biggest selling points to me for this game. But how will he play in Crash 4 It's About Time? Well, first and foremost, I just want to say Dingodile is a completely different statue to Crash and Cortex. Crash and Cortex, both quite nimble characters. They look quite agile. Dingodile is massive. I mean, it's going to be pretty much like going from driving a car, pretty much Crash and Cortex, to driving a big lorry. It's just a completely different experience. He's going to be far less nimble, let's say. So the gameplay is definitely going to be affected in that way. But regarding his actual moveset, he seems to have two big assets on his hands. So firstly, to destroy enemies and stuff like that, he's got a tail attack. The tail attack is pretty synonymous with Dingodile, so it's brilliant to see that in this game, and I think it's going to be a pretty fun way to defeat obstacles, defeat enemies, so I'm looking forward to trying that out. Perhaps more intriguingly though, Dingodile has now dropped his flamethrower and he's using some type of suction gun. Now there's a few things he can do with this suction gun. So firstly, he can suck up crates, which is pretty straightforward. I'll show that on screen right now, not too difficult. But he can also do a few other things. So the second thing I want to mention is he can sort of suck up things like barrels or maybe enemies and stuff like that and blow them out. So if he sucks up a barrel to get through somewhere, he can blow that barrel out and that should hopefully destroy something in his path. And the third thing he can do with his suction gun is once again blow air out of the suction gun to make him hover. Now that is a quite unique way of getting a character to hover. It's sort of equivalent in some ways to, Crash doing a double jump to breach big gaps he's got to cross. Instead, Dingodile's going to be hovering, which I think is a properly creative way of getting him to move, and I think it will be quite fun to use. Now overall, the characters which we've seen released so far in Crash 4 It's About Time and we've seen gameplay of, I think there's a really nice balance. I think Dingodile will handle completely differently to Crash and Cortex, but ultimately, Toys for Bob look to be getting that balance right. They're introducing new ideas in Dingodile and Cortex, different ways to play, different gameplay styles, but fundamentally, the game's the same. Most of the levels, I'm presuming, are going to be Crash. Most of the levels are going to be that fast action platforming style. And I just absolutely can't wait to try all of them out. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Make sure you let me know what you think to everything we've talked about in this video down in the comments. Also make sure that you check out the video in the box below for more Crash content. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. My name is Alex. Thank you so much for watching.